Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the revamped version of my Explosive Arrow Ballista for 3.21. If you guys are new here and you've never played Explosive Arrow before, the last time I made a full-fleshed guide, 48 minutes, is in 3.18 because it was my league starter back then. I don't want to repeat the same full build guide every league because only small things change. So we'll link that down in the below in the description. If you want to look at that, if you want to get the full scope of how Explosive Arrow works, there's some important things that you need to know. I will also put the 3.19 update and the 3.20 update. So in general, if you're new, everything will be down in the description. Also, if you prefer written guides, my max roll guide, whenever this comes out, probably like on the same day or a little bit later, will be fully updated. If you prefer written content, that is definitely going to be for you. It's very pretty. You also have a leveling section by Tai Killer himself, and he's going to guide you through the campaign from start to finish. It will be incredibly easy. Now, the revamp I'm talking about in a second is not included on max roll yet because it's a little bit experimental yet, and I want to be on the safe side here because there's a lot of new players also checking out max roll. And then if next league, it turns out people absolutely loved the remake, then we're definitely going to implement it here as well. Now, if you're an Explosive Arrow vet already, there's a few spicy changes here. The reason I didn't just call this an update, but also a revamp is because we're redoing defenses since Molten Shell and Molten Shell got nerfed. Now, that doesn't mean that the armor version is not viable anymore. It is nerfed a little bit in terms of defenses. I just think that there's a new way to build Explosive Arrow. I'm not going to try it out myself, but on paper, it looks incredibly good. So maybe some of you guys can try that out as well. Let's get into it. Now, a few days ago, I made a video called Molten Shell Nerfs, Alternatives to Armor, where I basically go over everything that you need to know about these nerfs. But the TLDR is basically that Molten Shell now can maximum grant a shield of 5,000 and Molten Shell 10,000, which for high armor builds, I think is still pretty stomachable. They're still always going to use Molten Shell. But for builds like Explosive Arrow, which didn't really like specialize on armor, they had like 25 to 30k armor, just enough to make it actually work and worthwhile. There is now a new kit on the block, and we're going to talk about that here. Basically, we're changing armor to physical damage taken as elemental. The reason it's so strong to transform your physical into elemental damage is that it gets reduced by your resistances. There's not that many sources of it. However, you can get around this by running Lightning Coil. Lightning Coil is a whopping 50% of physical damage taken as lightning, which is pretty darn strong. It has a downside of minus lightning resistance, but something we do as well is we actually cut the termination for purity of elements, which makes elemental resistance quite easy. It also makes you ailment immune, which is even stronger because now you're transforming physical damage into LE, so you could get more ailments. No, you're completely ailment immune. We complement Lightning Coil with also Taste of Hate, 15% of physical damage taken as cold during effect. We have on top of that a helmet. On helmet, you can get both the prefix, that is a craft, and then also the, I think it is an Eater of Worlds implicit. In total, that's 81% of physical damage taken as elemental. What you can do as well is there is actually purity effects like this. We have purity of elements. Take Fizz as lightning, take Fizz as fire, and take Fizz as cold. These go up to 12%, and you can have multiple of these mods. So theoretically, in endgame, you can convert 100% of physical damage to elemental. Now, how good is that with 81% of physical damage taken as LE? Well, 81% of the physical damage run against resistances, so they're reduced. So that means it is straight up 60% physical damage reduction. Also, a nice thing about this way of reducing incoming physical damage is that on armor, the bigger the hit is, the weaker armor gets. However, this is just a straight up flat reduction, making this basically a little bit weaker against smaller hits, but a lot stronger against bigger hits that could one-shot you. So what we also do is we cut the Molten Shell, since we don't have armor anymore, for Immortal Call, and this will require a little bit more gem setups, right? So this will require a four-link. You want Immortal Call with cast when damage taken, the Immortal Call on level 1. Actually, this is the other way around. I'm dumb. Level 3 Immortal Call with level 1 cast when damage taken. Increased duration, also life tap, because it does consume quite a bit of mana. Something else that changes is the Granite Flask changes into Taste of Hate. Now, you can still run a Granite Flask. You don't really have support for it, but it's still decent until you have it. However, Taste of Hate is best in slot. And here's the deal, right? You can farm Lightning Coil and Soul Sapphire. It is not even that hard to get. You need 8 of these cards, the Coming Storm, and they are not that rare, right? So you can farm it. You can farm them in these map layouts right here. Cemetery, Colonnade. I guess Cemetery would be nice. Promenade is a nice map, right? Stuff like this. But Taste of Hate is very rare. But the truth is, I know people in Soul Sapphire who farm like crazy, who can get these items pretty easily. It's just going to be a little bit later, so they transition from armor into this. So I don't know. This is just going to depend on your playstyle, how much time you have, and how big you want to go into farming these uniques. A small thing that changes about defense for a lot of people as well is the spell suppression mastery right here. 15% chance to suppress spell damage if your helmet, body armor, gloves, and boots all have evasion. Absolutely massive. This used to be a spell suppression mastery, and it was only 12%, and we weren't there, right? So we couldn't really path there. And now it's here. It's great. In fact, it makes gearing so much easier, and especially if you're lightning coil and you want to convert into that, it is also going to compensate from the body armor spell suppression that you just lost. And as a small reminder, the new Immortal Call setup needs 4 red sockets, so even though we're not running armor anymore, if you're using one slot where you have like hybrid armor, it's going to be a lot easier to color. As for other changes, the only nerf this patch that I have at least seen is that they removed the fire mastery with the 20% dot multi. That also gave minus 30 fire res, which you don't have to accommodate anymore, so I guess it's going to be a little bit easier to gear. Overall, it's still a negative. It's probably going to cost you 5 to 6% of your damage. So you just allocate that point elsewhere. But then we have some absolute bangers. Started with the Master Fletcher Anoint. We have a new Anoint, and it is +1 additional arrow, and it's going to make Explosive Arrow just feel so much better. And look at what oils this needs. The highest is a Crimson Oil. You're going to get this on trade for like a Chaos, and it's also really easy to farm on Soul Saffron. Just absolutely lovely. You're not going to need to stretch for Rain of Splinters anymore. It got so expensive. It got so rare for Soul Saffron that this is just absolutely remarkable. I don't think in any way, shape, or form it's worth to go for the third one, right? It's right here. Also, you could anoint this, but it costs a silver oil, so there's really no reason to do so. I think this is going to feel so comfy. Then we have a new Flask Mastery that I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on. Enemies you kill that are affected by elemental ailments grant 100% flask charges. It can happen that on shitty gear, you're going to run out of your Quicksilver Flask, and it's going to feel horrible. Not with this anymore. If you have reduced flask charges on your map mod, doesn't matter anymore. Incredible mastery and an absolute no-brainer for every EA build out there. Something I want to mention as well is Dynamo. Dynamo is this mana node over here. And this is interesting because it gives guard skills 40% increased duration. Now, maybe you could do something with reservation right here because there is the mana reservation efficiency mastery right here on mana, but it's hard to get into most builds because there's no mana points you really want. But if you can somehow squeeze this into the build and it gets you something else, that would be really cool because Immortal Call does have problems with uptime. So getting that extra 0.4 seconds would be quite huge. In this version, I couldn't really figure it out, but maybe you can. As for Whispers of Doom, this is something I already said in the 3.20 update, but if you're more of a boss killer, you can definitely anoint Whispers of Doom for the additional curse and just not go. The +1 arrow doesn't do anything anyways. Once again, additional arrows are only for clear. They don't add any single target damage. And the curse you would apply would be Elemental Weakness for even more elemental resistance reduction. Now, also a question I get asked quite a bit, is Wilma's Requital any good on EA? A lot of people have seen this on my Toxic Win build, and they're like, well, it has accuracy, it has LE damage with attacks, it has everything we want, right? Is it good? And the answer is kind of no. And that's mostly because we are already pathing to Ancestral Bond, right? And it's not like we would cut this whole section all of a sudden. It's literally just one passive point, whereas Toxic Rain gets to take it even though it's on the opposite end of the tree, which is a huge boon. Here, it only saves us a single point, so that is not even that big of a deal. We can't really abuse the increase in reductions to cast speed applies to attack speed all that much. We're not really built into that. So overall, what it costs us as well is the mastery right here, right? It's an energy shield base. So not only do we not gain any evasion, we're also not going to be able to take the spell suppress here. And on top of that, we also lose everything on our helmet, right? We lose 16% of fizz taken as LE. We lose another spell suppression roll. So once again, it's going to be possible to cap, right? We're losing a huge life roll, stuff like that. Yeah, overall, I cannot tell you. Unless you really want to go like all in, go Wilma's Requital. But the thing is, you don't even need it damage-wise, right? The way Explosive Arrow works is, once you're at like 2.1, 2.2 attack speed, you kind of have reached your maximum potential. You cannot really apply any more. You just need to hit that breakpoint, and afterwards it's just quality of life, kind of. It doesn't really add any extra damage in this build as it does with a lot of the other builds. That's just not how Ignite works. So overall, I would definitely stay away from Wilma's for Explosive Arrow. Also, a quick reminder that I'm not actively playing Explosive Arrow right now. So Although I can do all this free recrafting, the people who are really going to innovate are people like you or other people that you're going to see on PoE Ninja, for example. So I would definitely click into other people's profiles, see what they're doing, seeing what they come up with, and kind of yoink some stuff out of there if you feel like it is going to be good for your build. That's basically all I got. I will link the POV down in the description. Whether you want to use the new update that I made or not is completely up to you. Definitely tell me how it went if you league started it. Once again, if you're choosing Explosive Arrow, I hope a great league start. And since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.